Welcome to We Mean Business. I'm Steve Dorfman. Might you be a CEO or business owner who lacks awareness? Well, by the very nature of the question, would you even know that? And well, today we're going to help you uncover or discover whether that may be the case and what it might be costing you and your business and your team. We're here today with Ingar Grev. Ingar is a national writer for the business journals. He's got nearly 50,000 Twitter followers, and he is the DC growth coach. Welcome to the show, Ingar.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
You also spent years in the Navy, graduated from the Naval Academy, and then spent, was it 7 years on a submarine?
7 years in the Navy. Okay. 3 of those on a submarine, yeah.
All right. So many years in the Navy. What can business leaders learn from military leaders?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, thanks for having me on the show. So I think you and I talked about this before, is the idea that I still remember being on a submarine. One of the coolest things was, or probably one of the most inspirational things, was when the CO of the submarine, the commanding officer of the submarine, he would be the last one on the ship every morning and the first one off. And you would think, wow, the captain of a nuclear submarine, $1 billion+ piece of U.S. capital equipment, and he is coming in late every morning and leaving early every day. How's that even possible? Well, the idea is that in the Navy, and probably the same thing in any operational warfare unit, we run things off of systems and processes. We have trained leaders in place, and we delegate, right? So the captain, in Star Trek, right? Captain Kirk sits there in this chair, and he's giving orders to everybody, and that's not how it is in a real ship. A real ship, you're rarely going to see the captain on the bridge doing anything unless he just wants to come see what's going on or so forth. Otherwise, he's in a stateroom working, or he's going around the ship doing other things. I mean, if you're going to be fighting a battle, yeah, the captain's going to be up on the bridge, or if you're going to do some interesting operations. But it's the officer of the deck. He delegated the work to other leaders on the submarine, and those leaders are the ones who get the job done. How does the captain do that? Well, he's got trained leaders who've got processes and systems. He's got metrics in place. They have logs. They report to him every 6 hours about the status of things, right? And that's how that guy is able to have a normal life. He's not a micromanager. He's not the first car in the morning and the last car at night. He's not working to 2 o'clock in the morning. He's running a business, an enterprise that doesn't need him there all the time. And it's remarkable, and that's how businesses should operate, right?
What a great lesson for business owners and CEOs. You say that too many business owners have trouble making decisions.
Yeah, so what that boils down to is they have a hard time making strategic decisions. I think is the right thing to say, right? Because they'll make decisions a million times every single day about buying a new coffee machine, or whether or not we go after this client, or whether or not we have to do this report over again or something like that. But what they won't do are make strategic decisions like whether or not I should hire this person because he's going to get me into a new area that I wasn't looking at before, or whether it's doing investments in marketing or doing investments in things to grow the business. A lot of times they have problems with that. But again, it's all based upon strategy, because one of the things is they don't spend enough time doing strategic thinking.
You recently shared a lesson on business growth, and it was from your own experience with a home security company. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. That's good. You must have read one of my articles about that one. Yeah, the home security company. So a company sent me a letter. Actually, it wasn't even sending me a letter. What they did was they all of a sudden just increased my bill. I can't remember how much it was, but it was 50% or 100%, double the bill price. I don't know what it was. They just started doing it.
Yeah.
And so I called them. I said, hey, what's the story here with increasing my bill? She said, well, you were getting the service from us for the past year. And so we realized that you weren't being charged for the service. And so we just started charging you for it. I said, well, does that make any sense? How come you just didn't tell me in advance that you're going to?
And this was a service that you never even agreed to or wanted in the first
place. That's
place.
Correct. They just gave it to me, and then they realized that they had been giving it to me for free for about a year or something like that. And they said, okay, we're just going to go start charging you for it. Without even a phone call or a letter or anything to let me know in advance they're going to charge me for it.
Right.
And so what am I going to do? I'm going to go to one of the several other home security systems out there and find someone else to do the job.
Right.
I mean, because why would I want, if I was treated so callously by that business, why in the world would I stay? And yeah, I did switch, because it just didn't make any sense. They didn't they didn't value me as a customer. And that's ultimately where business value comes from, right? It doesn't come from anything apart from those customers who are willing to spend money in your business, because that's what's going to generate value, right? Cash flow.
Yeah, very good. What are some of the warning signs that the CEO can look for, a business owner can look for, that might indicate that they lack awareness?
Surprises are probably one of the biggest things, right? So you should know everything about your business. You should know everything about your business. What that means is that there should never be a surprise coming across your desk about financial performance, or whether or not someone's not feeling very well, or there's maybe some tough team environment in the company, whether sales people are having problems closing, whether there's some kind of emergency or some kind of problem starting to boil up somewhere in the company. If you don't know, if you are sitting in your office and you're surprised by something your employees tell you, then that's a problem. And that generally, there are a lot of reasons for that. But I would say the two biggest ones are, one, you don't have the right metrics. Either you don't have any metrics, or you don't have the right metrics that you're looking at on a periodic basis. Could be daily, could be weekly. It depends upon what the reasonable refresh rate is of those metrics. But you're not looking at those, and you're not seeing the trends and so forth, understanding what's going on. Two, you're making it very hard for your employees to come talk to you. And that's probably the most insidious of all these, right? Because it boils down to your ability to create an open environment for employees to come in and share things with you and not feel that they're going to get beat up by you by doing that. A friend of mine runs a Fortune 500 company, and he told me one of the most challenging things he had to deal with when he first took over the company was getting people to report to him, because the CEO he replaced just simply would not truck any kind of bad news. And so subordinates wouldn't tell him anything bad had happened. And so next thing you know, the guy didn't know any, he was never getting any reports about anything bad happening in the company. He could only get it by looking at the financial metrics. And so when my friend came on board, he changed that. If people started reporting news to him late, and he would say, "Why in the world are you telling me this so late? How come you didn't tell me what happened?" And they'd really have a good answer for it. He said, "Look, you got to tell me this stuff right away." And he said that alone transformed the business. The business is doing very well. He turned it around.
Yeah.
But all he did was open the door and make it possible for people to come talk to him. And if you make it hard for people to come talk to you, you're going to be surprised, and you're not going to have good awareness of what's going on in your business.
This is a really, really common problem. I know I've spoken with managers and leaders who've said to me, my people can't think for themselves, they're just not motivated, and at the end of a meeting, I always say, does anyone have anything to add? And nobody says anything. Clearly, you get what's going on there.
Right.
It's not, they don't feel that it's a safe environment to have a voice, to share their thoughts and their comments. So where can, if a CEO finally comes to the realization that that's what they've created, how can they start to undo that or unravel that?
Yeah, so first of all, I got some bad news, and that's that it's going to be very difficult for them to figure out that they're doing it. So not to sell what I do or what you do, but this is where external advisors, whether it's a board of directors, a coach, a mentor, somebody from outside can come and help you about this, because you are not going to be able to see this yourselves. I've
totally in the blind spot.
I have never met anybody who's been able to see it, because you're operating generally based upon, not generally, all the time, you're operating based upon your experience. And you're operating based upon what you've seen before in the past, whatever your parents taught you, or what you learned in school, or from your past bosses. You're just operating that way. And so without any insight in terms of how businesses are supposed to be operating in terms of leadership, you're never going to be able to see that blind spot. And so your question, though, was about, I answered the first question, which was, that first, it's going to be tough for you to see it. But then second was, how can you solve it?
Yeah. Where do you begin?
Yeah, so the first thing is that you got to take the heat off of people when they come into your office and tell you bad news. You have to encourage them to tell you that, and when they bring it to you, you can't fly off the handle, right? That's one of the key trademarks of a great leader is you don't fly off the handle. I interviewed the president of what used to be called Time Life Books. Last year I interviewed him, and he talked about one of the biggest things he had to learn was how he always had to watch his behavior and his demeanor around his employees, because if he felt offended in some way by peers, or if he felt that he wasn't getting the answer he was looking for, he had to keep on a stone face and make sure they understood that he was going to support them, so they can give him bad information, and even if he didn't like it, even if he knew that it came around because he told them to do something, they didn't do this, they didn't do what he told them to do, they came in the office and said, "Boss, I didn't do what you asked me to do," and the thing blew up in our face. You've got to be able to take that and not create a hostile environment. They've got to understand that they can talk to you. Now, you do need to discipline a person who doesn't do what you ask them to do, but that's a different story, right? But the thing is, you've got to make sure that they can come in and be invited to come in. So that means that you have to put aside your maybe your knee-jerk reaction to say, "I can't believe you did this," or "How come you're not coming with me with an answer?" or "How'd you let this happen?" Instead, say, "Well, wow, that's bad news. So what are your suggestions about how we solve that?" And if they don't have any answers, say, "Well, I'll tell you what, how about you come back to me in a couple hours with some answers about how we can solve it." There are a lot of ways around that, but we are in control of our reactions. So you say, "Hey, I can't help it." Well, that's a poor excuse. You're in control of your actions. You have to be able to control yourself as a leader and create a great example. So that's the other thing. The third thing I'd say along those lines, so one is actually having someone outside tell you. Two, some things you can do as a leader to make sure that you create an environment that's not hostile. But third is to provide your employees enough flexibility to be able to make decisions. And that's where you create an environment where you're actually leading and delegating and managing by exception or managing off of results and so forth, right? So you have to have metrics in place. You have to understand what your performance of your company is. And then you have to work off of those metrics, those results, and not off of micromanaging. When you give people enough space in order to where they can operate, then they can come up with great decisions and solve problems before they happen and so forth, right? So you actually reduce the chances, reduce the likelihood of emergencies popping up on you when you give your people enough latitude to operate because they understand what the results are that they're focused on.
What do you have to say to those business owners and CEOs who are micromanaging, they're aware of it, but they justify it? Say, look, if I didn't micromanage, then everything would just go crazy around here, and ultimately our customers wouldn't be taken care of. And it's me who notices these little things that if I catch them in time, then we're not in trouble. But if I'm not there to micromanage, who knows what's going to happen?
That's easy, right? So if you're micromanaging, your business is going to flatline. Period. It's going to flatline. And those flat lines will be all over the place. The first one tends to be between $2 to $5 million. There's another one somewhere around that $10 to $15 million mark, somewhere around there.
So by flat line, you mean that revenues are going to remain stagnant?
Correct.
If you're micromanaging, that's a big symptom.
Yep, it's going to happen because the business can only produce as much as your micromanagement will allow it to produce. Right. That's it. And so then you can say, "Oh, I'm all right. I'm all right with being at $3 million from now on." Okay, well, that's great. But then what happens with your margins? Right? Each year, costs go up. Right? Each year, you have to promote your employees, give them more money for them to stay there. And next thing you know, your margins keep going smaller and smaller and smaller. Your best employees, the ones that you're counting on to help you run your company because they became experts on everything, well, they're going to leave because they're only getting 1 or 2% increase every year because your margins are being destroyed by your non-growth. So if you want to be a micromanager, knock yourself out. Keep in mind that you're going to run your business into the ground. There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, we've got to take a break, but when we come back, you say that just by having the title of CEO, that a lot of CEOs are delusional, believing that they can strategize. We're going to talk about that when we come back. You're watching We Mean Business. I'm here today with Ingar Grev, the DC Growth Coach. We'll be back in seconds.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to We Mean Business. I'm Steve Dorfman, and today we're talking about a lack of awareness that a lot of CEOs and business owners might be running with. And we're here today with Ingar Grev, who is Managing Director of the Growth Coach in Washington, D.C. So before the break, I'd asked you, or alluded to this, that you say that a lot of CEOs are somewhat delusional because they think that just because they have the title of CEO that they can then strategize.
Right.
But that might not be the case.
Yeah, that was a great piece of advice I got from my friend Don Turner down in Atlanta, who is a strategic consultant, one of my mentors for much of my professional career, and his experience was, and I've learned the same thing now myself, is that someone gives himself the title CEO, says, well, because I'm a CEO, I'm a strategist by definition. So I started the company. I know where we want to go. I know what the marketplace wants. I am the strategy setter. Well, yeah, you are the strategy setter. But the thing is, do you even have any idea at all how to set that strategy? Strategy is a process. It's an exercise. It's a muscle. So if you do CrossFit or something like that, you don't go in the first day and you're awesome and everything. Or you play baseball. You don't go in your first day and be able to hit the ball off of a major league pitcher. And the same thing with strategy. Strategy is not something strategic thinking is not something we're born with, right? It takes time and energy. And in the Growth Coach, what we do is we have to introduce people to the strategic mindset process. And over the course of time, they become strategists. But it doesn't start right off the bat, and it takes a little while to do that. So yeah, if you're a CEO of a company, you are not a strategist. You may think you are. But unless you've actually had the practice doing it, learning how to exercise that muscle, yeah, you're probably not a strategist.
Do you think that every CEO and a business owner should have some guidance in the way of coaching or somebody from outside of their company to help them see what they can't see?
Well, that's a softball question. Yeah, of course. I mean, I wouldn't be in this business if I didn't think that, right? I mean, and the biggest issue, and this doesn't just go necessarily with coaching CEOs or consulting with CEOs. It goes to your marketing or anything where having a broad set of experiences can help a CEO, right? You start your company, you know your company, and you know what you did before that. But a guy like me who has been in Fortune 500 and small companies and been in leadership roles in all those, been leadership role in the Navy, been interim COOs for companies, but have coached and consulted lots of companies from small to Capital One to large companies. It's tough to compete with that kind of experience in terms of helping a CEO and giving him insight in terms of where he should go with his business or what things he's missing or what kind of awareness is going on and so forth. And so that's just an awesome set of experiences that you can take advantage of. And if you're just focused on yourself and you're only advisors yourself, yeah, you should keep good counsel to yourself. But by the same token, if no one's helping from the outside, it's very tough for you to be objective.
If there's I'm thinking of somebody actually in particular. Maybe if there's a business owner who you just see that this person is getting in their own way, and they really, they could just benefit so greatly from having a coach. Is there any hope that they'd ever be willing? Because right now this person is in a place where this person is completely unwilling to ever accept any outside help.
Yeah. The only time that really happened was something breaks maybe in their life or something like that, just from my own experience, unfortunately. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll try to hire consultants or coaches to help their company because they say, well, it's not my fault. Right? It's my salespeople aren't good enough salespeople, or I stink at hiring people. Every single person I hire, this is a good hint, by the way. If every single person you hire stinks, then possibly you're the problem.
Right.
But yeah, there's going to have to be some kind of breakthrough in their lives where oftentimes where they things start breaking apart and they realize they want to fix it. Or sometimes I remember one guy who became a client of mine was only because I set the hot button to him, which was, you're a lot of times when you're a prisoner of your business, you don't see your family anymore. And next thing you know, he had 5 or 6 kids, and he was working all the time. And he realized that they were going to grow up without him, and that became so painful for him. He realized, okay, I want to do something about that. I need to run my business like a real business, and that's why he engaged me. But yeah, they're going to have some kind of eureka moment in order to do that.
All right, let's move on to successful business. We've talked a lot about businesses that are in trouble and what to do about it. But let's say somebody is they're doing well, they're on track, but they're not quite sure if they're ready to handle growth. So how can they know? How can they know that they're in that place of being ready to handle growth?
Well, I think when you said your first statement, you said was, yeah, they're doing great. Then they can handle growth. I mean, really, if you're doing great, then you're growing. That's how it is for a company. A company that's doing well is growing. Because if it's not growing, it's dying for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So
there is no status quo. There is no stagnant.
That's right. You're in
either
business,
improving or declining.
In business, you're either improving or you're declining. Absolutely right. As I mentioned, you're just by virtue of your margins going away. If you're not growing, you're going to get killed. So, but what are some things you can think about? Well, you're going to have to have capacity. The big thing is if the business runs without you. So here's all the great things that come from you. If the business can run without you, in other words, if you could be like my captain on my submarine and be the last guy there in the morning and the first guy home every day, if you can do that, then a couple of things are going on. One, you've got a scalable business. Scale is what allows you to grow, right? And if you don't have a scalable business, then you don't have a great business, and that shows your business is ready to grow. The other thing is if you're actually able to grow, you actually drive the value of your business, because now a potential acquirer is going to say, I can buy this business from you, I can pull you out, and the company will still grow without you, right? But again, if you take a vacation for a week without having your computer with you or your phone or anything like that, and then you get a great business at that point.
Yeah, that's a rare thing, isn't it?
It's not rare amongst great companies.
Yeah.
But it's rare amongst most small businesses, because they don't make that they don't transcend that gap.
We hear a lot about accountability. How can we be more effective at holding others and ourselves more accountable?
Well, it's tough to hold ourselves accountable. That's why, again, you have people like me, coaches or boards of directors and so forth. That's why it's always a great idea to find someone to whom you can be accountable as a CEO. So you're just not accountable to yourself, right? But you got to be a person of your word, right? You have to be a person of integrity, and you have to act with integrity in everything you do. And sometimes our definitions can change about that if we're not accountable to somebody. I know I, as a coach, have helped CEOs understand when they're actually lying. Say, hey, when you lie, and when you tell your employees that you lie, when your employees can see that you're lying, you're actually encouraging them to lie to you.
Sure.
And then you're going to have that awareness problem. And to hold your employees accountable is really the way you do that is you make sure you have metrics, you show them what the results are that you expect from them, you demonstrate them, you give them the tools they need to accomplish those results, and then when they don't achieve those results, you find out why. Is it because you're not doing what I asked you to do, or you do not have the tools? But if I don't follow up with them and hold them accountable for that, I can't solve problems. It may be that I have the wrong person in the job. But if I don't follow up and hold them accountable, I'll never know that. So it doesn't make any sense to run a company without accountability. Along the same lines, you must be an empathetic leader. You can't just say, here's the job I asked you to do, and then they don't do it, and you say, well, you're fired. Did you give them the tools to do the job? Were they qualified? Did you hear them repeat back to you the instructions that you gave them? Right? A lot of times people say, well, I have insubordinate employees, and my experience is 100% of the time, actually, from my personal experience, 100% of the time, it's because the leader did not communicate effectively to the subordinate.
Wow. Yeah, you wrote a recent article about insubordination and dysfunctional teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the gist of the article?
It is, absolutely. Yeah. But that was the insubordination part. Dysfunctional teams was all about you are responsible for those team dynamics. So when people are passive-aggressive in your company or not working well as a team, you have to step in as the boss and fix that. and not allow that kind of stuff to happen. That's what this dysfunctional team was about. You can't just say, well, my people are bad. Well, no. It's your responsibility as the coach, as the head coach of your company, to make sure that team works well. And if you watch any sports movies, you'll see this all the time, right? Miracle is a great example with Herb Brooks and the 1980 hockey team, right? Of how he got all these guys who were fighting at one time to work together as a team. It's your responsibility. Yeah, some people are not going to fit, and you get rid of them.
You have some thoughts on hours versus value of employees. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Hours versus value.
Yeah. When we first spoke on the phone, you were. I assumed this is just in my notes. So I assumed it had something to do with, from a leadership perspective, the looking at somebody punching the clock versus the value that they bring.
Yeah. So this was based upon a recent example I had. I had a long talk with a client about. He was concerned that his employees were looking at Facebook or flipping off their screens when people were walking around the office. Right. Meantime, while I was working with him, his business has grown after being flat for 3 years, 25% over the last quarter, and it looks like it's on a trajectory to grow about 30% this year. And so I asked him, hey, Joe, if your business is growing and they're looking at Facebook, wouldn't you just say, well, do more Facebook? The idea is that the hours are not what was critical. It was the results they were providing.
Right.
Once I say, here's what I expect you to do, and if they do a great job accomplishing those things, so much so that they can spend 4 hours a day doing Facebook, then the problem isn't Facebook. The problem is, hey, now because your people are working much better than before, you have over capacity. Sell more, and you'll solve your Facebook problem.
Very
so
good. Very
focus
good.
on results.
Very good. We've talked about customer relationships. We've talked about delegating. How involved in customer relationships should the CEO be?
So the CEO's number one job is sales and marketing. Doesn't matter what business you're in, your number one job is sales and marketing. The number one rule of marketing is hold on to your existing customers. It's impossible to grow a business, almost impossible to grow a business, if you're losing customers. And so you have to hold on to those people and do whatever it takes to keep those customers happy. Right? There's some kind of stat, and depends upon where you read it from, that it costs 7 to 9 times more to acquire a new customer than to hold on an existing one. Right. So you got to hold on to those existing customers, and so you have to figure out whatever it takes to keep them. But during the break we were talking about that, right? And you have to make a focus on the customer experience, and that's why it's got to be. Again, since sales and marketing is your number one job as a CEO, alongside strategy, of course, right? So that's your number one job. You've got to make sure those customers are happy. That's going to drive value, and it's going to make you a rich man or rich woman someday when you sell the company.
Very good. In the 30 seconds we have left, in one of your Business Journal articles a few years ago, it was titled, "It's Not About You When It Comes to Your Business." So now in 20 seconds, what's the gist of that?
Hey, once you start a business, it's no longer about you. Right? It was when you started it, but eventually it's all the employees you have there. They're paying their mortgages, they're paying their taxes, they're putting their kids through school, right? You're helping out the entire economy around your area. Your business is no longer you. You have got to be able to let it go and let the people run the company, right? So that it will grow without you. Because you're going to die someday, right? We're all going to shed this mortal coil. Right, so you gotta make that business run without you, so it lasts. It's a generational thing, and it continues to provide for the marketplace.
Great advice, Ingar. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You've been watching We Mean Business. I'm Steve Dorfman. To learn more about Ingar Grev, the growth coach, you can visit wemeanbiz.tv. Catch you next time.